GamingBolt presents 15 strangest quests in Fallout 4. Love it or hate it, Fallout 4 has a ton of interesting quests to go through like its predecessors. The Commonwealth hides lots of interesting lore, and even if the quests themselves seem straightforward, the stories around them are definitely worth experiencing. And yes, that applies to some of these stranger quests as well. Let's take a closer look at the 15 strangest quests in Fallout 4. Hazardous material. Any quest that takes you to a place called Hallucinogen Incorporated sounds fishy. Sure enough, after receiving the quest from Fred Allen in Hotel Rexford, you'll walk into the building to recover a hallucinogen gas canister, only to discover gunner soldiers fighting among each other and seemingly gone mad. So investigation will reveal that hallucinogen gas is a bioweapon that drives people crazy, and the gunners, among other victims, were used as test subjects. Vault 75. Vault 75's intention seems nice if shady enough. Initiate children under the age of 17 in case of a nuclear attack. Once the player starts reading terminals throughout the facility, which is abandoned save for some gunners and Institute synths battling it out, the depravity comes to light. Children were trained and experimented on while being separated from their parents, with their genetic material harvested to contribute to further experiments. Excellent specimens could join the research team. However, those deemed less than excellent were executed. Heck, children aged 17 and above were executed regardless. Dunwich Borers. When you talk about supernatural happenings, it's impossible not to mention Dunwich Borers. You can discover it through a Minutemen Radiant quest, among other things, wherein a settlement will task you with rescuing a kidnapped victim. Kill the kidnappers, pay the ransom, do whatever, and all is well. However, investigating into Dunwich Borers feels like a descent into madness. Flashbacks, hints at an evil presence hidden within the surface. Though you never really find out what, surviving ghoul attacks and obtaining Krimpf's tooth hint at an entity that was being excavated. Perhaps this is Ugg Qualtoth, the entity from Fallout 3's Dunwich building. Pickman's Gift. Cited as a possible reference to Pickman's Model by H.P. Lovecraft, this quest involves heading to Pickman Gallery. Things immediately take a turn for the grotesque when numerous bodies are discovered, many tortured. Pickman is actually a serial killer, and he took pleasure in painting with his victims' blood. Near the end, you can actually decide whether to kill the raiders seeking Pickman and save him, let them kill him, or kill both. Having Pickman survive will net you Pickman's blade, but you'll also receive a note saying, "Thanks killer," with a heart drawn in blood. How sweet. The Devil's Due. It's weird enough that the quest takes place in the Museum of Witchcraft, but heading to one located in Salem, infamous for its witch trials in 1692? Yeah. Upon arriving, players will discover holotapes for soldiers that attempted to retrieve a Deathclaw egg. Attempted. Which would explain all the roars and stomping, but what's with the mannequins? Why are they holding machetes and strategically placed over corpses? Eventually, you're tasked with either returning the Deathclaw egg or giving it to Wellingham in Diamond City for a recipe. Regardless, something supernatural is definitely afoot at the museum. Emergent behavior. Think of Pinocchio for a second and wonder what it would be like if a Miss Nanny wanted a real body. Fallout 4 answers that query with Curie, a companion gained from Vault 81 who, if your approval is high enough, will want to become more human. This actually consists of taking her to Dr. Amari in the memory den and transferring her consciousness to an abandoned synth body, one left in a vegetative state, mind you. Though it's a happy ending and all that with Curie having all these new emotions, it still feels as weird as helping a floating robot enter a human robot's shell abandoned by its previous user and then dealing with kawaii feelings afterwards can be. Dangerous Minds. Of course, you can't really attempt to help Curie without completing Dangerous Minds. The objective of this story mission is to discover Kellogg's objective and find some way to infiltrate the Institute in the process. This involves checking his memories by hacking into Kellogg's cybernetic brain augmenter. However, you literally dive into Kellogg's memories, from his childhood to being hired by the Institute and kidnapping Sean. It's kind of cool, but a stark contrast from nearly everything we've seen in the game till now. Then again, Fallout does have aliens, so borderline infiltrating someone's memories shouldn't be impossible. Wedding Day. A short and sweet quest, but weird all the same. Wedding Day involves an elderly schoolteacher named Zwicky and his assistant Miss Edna, who's also a Miss Nanny, getting married. You'll need to do a fair bit of convincing to prove the risk is worth it for both of them. However, if successful, head back to Diamond City after a few days and you'll see them getting married. Last voyage of the USS Constitution. The USS Constitution should be familiar to many players. It's the giant ship sitting on top of the Weatherby Savings and Loan Bank building. The good news is that you can help free this ship. The weird news, however, is that it's helmed entirely by robots. The other good news is that you can fire the cannons of the Constitution. Unfortunately, even after everything is in place, the Constitution ends up crashing into another building. The Secret of Cabot House. If the Cabot family wasn't strange enough, having survived for several centuries, the mission to prevent raiders from freeing Lorenzo Cabot is a trip to the insane side. Aside from the obvious insanity in Parsons State Insane Asylum, siding with Lorenzo will result in the whole Cabot family dying. However, siding with Jack means that he either kills Lorenzo or you have to deal with him yourself. But hey, decide to side with Lorenzo and he'll give you an unlimited supply of his blood, which kept his family alive for so long. A magical kingdom. How would you react when heading to a children's amusement park only to deal with rad-spewing sprinklers and a sentient glowing one who uses magic tricks to thwart you? A magical kingdom focuses on Oswald, who uses radiation and constantly tries to push the player away from the Kitty Kingdom in Nuka World. It's eventually revealed that Oswald is trying to protect all the feral ghouls since they used to be his friends and is awaiting the return of his love interest, Rachel. Sadly, Rachel, who was seeking a cure, turned feral and died en route to returning. Still, battling a glowing one magician is a weird premise, no matter how you slice it. Human error. From the get-go, Covenant is just plain strange. You can't enter without undergoing the safe test administered to all visitors to prove they're not synths. Word of missing people, especially Amelia Stockton, comes up and you can even find a caravan with a blood trail that points to Covenant. The denizens will all deny anything is wrong though. Eventually, it becomes clear that Covenant is kidnapping people for torturous experiments to improve its synth testing system. The strangest part? Amelia was a synth after all. The Silver Shroud. Want to become a Caped Crusader? Well, too bad, because you'll have to settle for the Silver Shroud. Upon speaking to Kent Connolly, and yes, the Kevin Conroy reference is obvious, you obtain all of the items necessary to become the Silver Shroud. From there, you must listen to Silver Shroud radio, kill 3 murderers, leave calling cards on their bodies, and even save Kent at some point. To cap it all off, the sole survivor can speak as the Silver Shroud, presenting some truly horrible dialogue in a gravelly voice like, "Face my wrath," and "Your crimes have gone unpunished for too long." Cambridge Polymer Labs. Enter Cambridge Polymer Labs, and a Miss Nanny bot named Molly will direct you to the clean room. From there, you're locked inside the lab until the experiment is completed. This basically involves finding some materials in a terminal and then conducting the experiment. However, you only know which materials are needed by going through the terminals, and it's here that the tragic truth is learned. The lab was working on an experiment for the military before the bombs dropped. Once things fell apart, the scientists were trapped inside by the director, as he hoped completing the experiment could mean extraction by the army. Suffice to say, things didn't turn out very well as the scientists, including the director's wife, died and the director himself became a ghoul. Benign intervention. After gaining Kate's approval, she'll express interest in wanting to get clean. So what better way than heading to Vault 95, a place which was formerly built for drug addicts. There are speech checks required for Kate to undergo the detox process, but the vault itself is inherently more interesting. Created as a rehab facility for addicts, many of its denizens were clean for 5 years until a Vault Tech plant would unearth a hidden stash. This was meant to measure the response of the community. Instead, it resulted in pandemonium. The Vault Tech employee was murdered. The community fell apart as many fell back into their urges. People were killed or fled, and the overall vault is in ruins. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.